If your parrot screams at mirrors, do you actually know what it's trying to tell you? You probably think you do. It sees another bird, it gets excited, it's just being a parrot. But here's what's actually happening in your parrot's mind every single time it faces that reflection. It is not confused about what a mirror is, it is not playing a game, it is doing something that goes so much deeper than either of those explanations, something that tells you everything about what your parrot's inner life actually looks like. And once you understand what your parrot is experiencing in front of that mirror, you will feel that moment very differently than you ever have before. Let's start with the assumption almost every parrot owner makes. 1. Your parrot is not confused. It is lonely. You put a mirror in your parrot's cage because you read that it would provide stimulation, company, something to interact with when you're not home. And your parrot did interact with it. It called to it. It screamed at it. It pressed its beak against the glass. It waited. Most owners watch this and think, it thinks that's a real bird. It's so funny how it can't figure out what a mirror is. But here's what's actually happening. Parrots are among the most socially complex animals on the planet. In the wild, they live in flocks of dozens to hundreds of individuals. They have bonded pairs that last decades. They have flock-specific dialects that identify which group they belong to. They spend virtually every waking moment in close proximity to other members of their species, grooming, calling, foraging, flying, and sleeping side by side. Your companion parrot has none of that. It has you. And when you leave, when the flock member it has bonded its entire world around walks out of the room, it is alone in a way that has no equivalent in the life it was biologically designed for. The mirror is not a toy to your parrot. It is a possibility. When your parrot sees its reflection, it sees the shape of another parrot. The right size, the right posture, the right visual signature of species recognition. And every instinct its biology contains tells it, reach out, call, establish contact. Because that is what parrots do when they see another parrot. So it calls, it screams, it presses its beak to the glass. It waits for the response that flock biology promises should come. And it never does. Researchers studying social behavior in captive parrots describe mirror interaction not as confusion, but as frustrated social motivation. The drive to connect colliding with an object that provides the visual stimulus of connection without any of its substance. Your parrot is not laughing at its own reflection. It is calling out to the only other parrot it has ever seen, and getting silence back every single time. That's not entertainment. That's one of the loneliest things that happens in captive parrot life. And by the way, what your parrot does after it realizes the reflection isn't going to respond tells you something about its emotional state that most owners never think to notice. We will get to exactly what to watch for near the end of this video. 2. What your parrot actually understands about mirrors. Here is where it gets more complicated and more interesting. The standard assumption is that parrots fail the mirror self-recognition test. That, unlike great apes, elephants, and dolphins, parrots do not recognize themselves in a mirror and therefore must think the reflection is another animal. But the research tells a more nuanced story. Several parrot species, particularly African greys, have shown responses to mirror self-recognition tests that researchers describe as ambiguous rather than clearly failing. Some individual parrots show behaviors consistent with self-directed responses, investigating their own body after seeing the reflection or producing vocalizations that differ from the ones they use when interacting with other birds. What researchers now believe is that the picture is more complex than a simple pass or fail. Some parrots may have partial or context-dependent self-recognition. Others may understand on some level that the reflection is connected to them while still being compelled by flock instinct to attempt social contact with it. Your parrot may know on some level that the reflection is not a real bird, and it may still call to it. Because the drive to make contact with something that looks like its species is stronger than whatever cognitive understanding it has developed about what mirrors are. This is what makes the mirror behavior so poignant when you really sit with it. It is not simple confusion. It may be something closer to hope, reaching out to something that looks like connection, even knowing, on some level, that connection isn't actually there. That's not a bird that doesn't understand mirrors. That's a bird whose need for company is stronger than its understanding of why that company can't come. 3. The flock that never came. To understand why mirror behavior affects parrots as deeply as it does, you have to understand what your parrot lost when it came to live with you. In the wild, a parrot is never alone from the moment it hatches. It is raised in a nest with siblings. It fledges into a flock. It finds a mate. It spends its entire adult life, which in some species spans 50 years or more, within calling distance of the same bonded pair partner and the same flock community. The companionship is not optional. It is not enrichment. It is the architecture of the parrot's entire existence. Every behavioral system your parrot has, its communication, its emotional regulation, its sense of safety, its experience of time, was built to operate within a flock. Your parrot came into your home alone, or with one human companion who leaves for 8 hours a day, or with one other bird that it may or may not have bonded with deeply. Researchers studying psychological well-being in captive parrots describe chronic social isolation as the single most significant welfare concern in companion parrot keeping. More significant than diet, more significant than cage size, more significant than almost any other single factor. Your parrot's mirror behavior is the surface expression of something much deeper. The flock that its biology expected and that never came. The calls that should have been answered and weren't. The social architecture of an entire species compressed into a household where the only available flock member is a human who has to go to work. That's not a parrot with a mirror problem. That's a flock animal living a life its biology never prepared it for, and doing its best to find connection wherever the shape of it appears. 4. What the aggression at the mirror actually means. Here is something that surprises most owners. Some parrots don't just call at the mirror, they attack it. They lunge at the reflection, bite the glass, flare their feathers, and display with full territorial aggression toward their own image. Most owners assume this means the parrot is more confused than the ones that call sweetly, that it genuinely cannot figure out what a mirror is and thinks there is a rival bird invading its territory. But here's what's actually happening. When a parrot's contact calls to the mirror go unanswered, when the social approach produces no reciprocal response, the parrot's nervous system eventually reclassifies the interaction. The reflection is not responding like a flock member would respond. It is not calling back. It is not grooming. It is not moving away or approaching in the normal social choreography of parrot interaction. To a parrot's flock-calibrated social intelligence, an individual that consistently fails to respond to contact calls and social approaches is not a neutral presence. It is a threat, an unknown that has entered the territory and refused all social overtures. The aggression toward the mirror is not confusion escalating. It is the flock social protocol playing out in sequence. First contact, then social approach, then, when neither produces a response, territorial challenge. Your parrot is not getting angrier at its reflection because it is more confused than other parrots. It is following the exact social script its biology provided for an encounter with a non-responsive intruder. The mirror is failing the parrot's social test, and the parrot is responding accordingly. That's not irrational behavior. That's a social intelligence so sophisticated that it expects social rules to be followed, and escalates logically when they aren't. 5. What happens after the mirror goes silent? This is what I mentioned at the beginning, and it is the part that tells you the most about your individual parrot's emotional state. Watch what your parrot does after the mirror interaction ends, after it has called and screamed and pressed its beak to the glass and received nothing back, after it finally turns away. Some parrots return to normal activity within minutes. They call out once or twice more, get no response, and redirect to something else. This parrot has other sources of stimulation and connection robust enough to compensate for the frustration of the mirror interaction. Some parrots sit quietly after the mirror interaction. They turn away and become still, sometimes for extended periods, not sleeping, not vocalizing, just sitting. This stillness is the parrot's behavioral equivalent of withdrawal. The attempt at connection failed. The nervous system is processing that failure, and until something external pulls it back into engagement, it stays in that quiet place. Some parrots show displacement behaviors after mirror interaction: repetitive movements, unusual vocalizations, agitated pacing. These are signs of frustration energy with nowhere productive to go. The drive to connect that the mirror activated and then failed to satisfy has to go somewhere. And it goes into these repetitive outlets. The parrot that sits quietly after the mirror goes silent is the one that warrants the most attention. That stillness is the behavioral signature of an animal that tried to connect and found nothing there. It is the closest thing to loneliness that parrot behavior science has been able to document. If your parrot does this, if it calls at the mirror and then sits quietly when the mirror doesn't answer, take that stillness seriously. Not as a crisis, as information about what your parrot needs from you that the mirror was never going to be able to provide. And hey, if this is changing the way you see the mirror in your parrot's space right now, hit that like button and subscribe. That's how we reach more parrot owners who actually want to understand what their bird has been trying to tell them. 6. What to do about the mirror. Based on everything we have covered, should you remove the mirror? The honest answer is that it depends on your individual parrot's response to it. For parrots that interact briefly with the mirror and then move on with no sign of frustration or withdrawal, the mirror is likely providing mild stimulation without significant cost. It is not solving the social need, but it is not deepening the harm either. For parrots that become agitated, aggressive, or withdrawn after mirror interaction, the mirror is producing net negative emotional outcomes. The stimulation of seeing a potential flock member is being followed by the frustration of that member's failure to respond. The cost exceeds whatever benefit the visual stimulation provides. In these cases, removing the mirror is the kindest response. The mirror was never a solution to the problem it was meant to address. It cannot replace flock contact. It cannot provide the reciprocal social interaction that your parrot's biology requires. At its best, it provides brief visual stimulation. At its worst, it provides repeated experiences of attempted connection that go nowhere. What your parrot needs instead is not a better simulation of company. It is more of the real thing. More direct interaction with you, more time outside the cage in your presence, more vocal exchange, more foraging enrichment that engages the same problem-solving systems that flock life would naturally activate, not a reflection of a flock member, an actual one, the one it already has. 7. You are the flock. I want to end here because I think it changes everything about how you think about your role in your parrot's life. Your parrot is not a pet that lives in your home. It is a flock animal that has made you its flock. Every behavior we have discussed in this video, every call at the mirror, every frustrated silence, every moment of withdrawal after the reflection doesn't answer, is the expression of a social architecture that was built for dozens of companions and is being maintained by one. You. The weight of that is real. You cannot be 50 parrots. You cannot be the flock your bird was designed for. But you can be present in the ways that matter most to a parrot's nervous system. You can answer the contact calls from the other room. You can be in the same space without demanding interaction. You can talk during the day the way a flock member would, not performing, not training, just existing vocally in the same world. You can come home the way a returning flock member comes home, with acknowledgement, with warmth, with the specific quality of presence that tells a flock animal its most important companion is back within range. You cannot give your parrot a flock, but you can give it something a flock gives: the daily, consistent, reliable experience of not being alone. That is what the mirror was always reaching for. Not glass, not a reflection, you. Every time your parrot screams at that mirror, it is practicing a call it would rather direct at something that answers. And every time you answer, from across the house, from the kitchen, from wherever you are giving your parrot the thing the mirror never could: proof that it is not alone. Drop a comment and tell me, does your parrot have a mirror, and what does it do with it? I read every single one, and the patterns across thousands of parrots tell a story worth knowing. And if your parrot is vomiting, or if you've seen it bring food back up and you're not sure whether what you witnessed was something alarming or something else entirely, those two things look almost identical and they could not mean more different things. One of them is a vet emergency. The other is one of the highest compliments your parrot can pay you. That video will be up tomorrow. See you all then.